What's going on, Badger fans? Good morning. Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Football is coming. Let's talk about what we're excited about, and let's take a look back to last year going into spring practice. What were we talking about then? Let's marvel a little bit at how different this program is going to be. On Wisconsin, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Really do appreciate everybody tuning into this show, however you're going to get it. Didn't get a show out last night, so we're just going to go live this morning, talk about a few things rattling around in the brain, things that I'm interested in doing, right? So spring practice is coming up. We've talked a lot about basketball, obviously, with the Big Ten tournament, the season winding down. But I wanted to kind of just take a look back to last year's spring and what were we talking about? What are the big, obviously we know the big differences, but just marvel a little bit. Like it's RIP fullbacks. Phil Longo has talked in a couple places about how he doesn't use fullbacks. So it's on another Badgers podcast, I think the Believe podcast. And he actually talked about it. I saw something in a North Carolina interview he did as well. Think about the fullbacks we've had, right, in the last 20 years. It's things we get so caught up in the moment of everything, which I do as well. The Mabry Metzauer and Tanner Mordecai and CJ Williams and Longo and everything happening. Like we're not going to use fullbacks anymore. Like just zoom out a little bit and think about, and I'm fine with it. Like this is not like oh my gosh, I'm going to miss it so much. I'm excited to move forward, but just think about how different this all is going to look. Like think about the fullbacks Wisconsin has had. Chris Presley. I remember watching squat videos of Chris Presley, which that kind of sounds creepy now that I say that out loud, but the guy could squat a Sherman tank. Right. Austin Ramish, Alec Ingold, Brady Ewing. I loved Brady Ewing. There's just so many changes that I just want to zoom out before we get into, we're going to start doing a lot of positional previews for spring. A couple really fun guests coming up this week, Wednesday and Thursday, that you're going to want to tune into. But before we really dive into the spring previews, I just want to zoom back. And I looked at what we were talking about last year, because I was doing this show. I'm coming up on my year. Really about now-ish, my year anniversary of Locked On. And we were talking about the quarterbacks. And I did a show called Quarterback Depth Issues, ? And we were talking about Graham Mertz, Chase Wolf. And I was saying, man, if Graham Mertz gets hurt, who do we have behind him? And now it's like, well, you have Nick Evers, you have Braden Locke, it's just so different. We talked about last year, the receivers, and we said, man, this is a really good group of receivers. And now you look at it, Wisconsin's like, we can go 9 deep on receivers that we're at least excited about the potential of, right? And last year I was excited because I was like, man, I really like our top 3, like DK, Keontez Lewis coming in, and Skylar Bell. I'm really excited about these 3. And maybe Dean Ingram can sneak in there. And now it's like, man, Bryson Green, CJ Williams, Pauling. I like Burrows a lot. Yeah, DK still. It's just incredible the difference in the program in the last year. Like I said, RIP fullbacks. RIP, who here remembers the hippo formation, right? The barge. It's RIP to all of that as well. How many times has Wisconsin in the last 2 years been light on tight ends? And instead of actually having another receiver on the field, instead of maybe going to a younger tight end, you just automatically, it's like, we're going to line up another offensive lineman out there because we don't have enough bodies at tight end, and we're not going to go to 3 receivers, right? So it's RIP to that. It's RIP to the bland social media, to the non-utilization of NIL. It's RIP to predictable play calling. I've heard fans be really excited about this offseason, and another segment of fans say, it's just the offseason. It's not that big a deal. Don't get that excited. I'm just telling you, get excited. Like, why wouldn't you get excited about this? We're about to embark on this. It's not a new coach at Wisconsin. It's a new era at Wisconsin. You don't start eras very often in sports. You know what I mean? Like, you change coaches more often. You change quarterbacks all the time. You change coordinators. But a lot of times those are just continuation of the same era. It's the next chapter of the same book trilogy. This is a new genre at Wisconsin, and I cannot wait to see it. And I've spent like the last couple of days just thinking about everything from that old era that's just gone. And there's some nostalgia there too. Like I said, I'm super excited about this new era, but there is some nostalgia there. Like I liked those fullbacks. I liked the intimidation that Wisconsin had at times when Wisconsin was rolling, which has not been the last couple of years. I liked the fact that you could run the ball 25 straight times and just basically, we did it to Michigan. If you remember, we ran the ball in the second half of that Michigan game. What was it? 12 years ago at this point. I don't even know, but those were fun memories for me, and those are gone. It's not going to be that anymore. I think it's going to be better. I'm excited for it, but yeah, it's spring football's coming up. Let's keep going here. A bunch of comments, and I have some comments I want to get to with the NIT as well. We're going to talk NIT coming up next. Yeah, Matt Bernstein, Steve Mitchell bringing it in. Matt Bernstein, another great fullback in the lineage of Wisconsin fullbacks. Let's see, a couple quarterbacks here. MLB champs 1908. I'm guessing 2 quarterbacks transfer out next year. I don't think 2 transfer. I think 1. If we're talking quarterback depth chart, I think 1 probably transfers. So because you have Mordecai's going to start this year, and then you have Evers and Locke competing. LaCruz a year below them. So I don't think LaCruz is going to go anywhere, at least not in the immediate term. So next year it's going to be, I think, Evers or Mordecai, or Evers or Locke, sorry, or even LaCruz. Don't count out LaCruz in this. And then you have Mabry coming in the next year. I think one of the 2 transfer quarterbacks, be it Evers or be it Locke, they're probably here to start next year. And if they don't, they're gone, which that makes sense. Darren Wyman brings it in. Cole is a fierce competitor. I think he sticks for at least a year, and who knows, he may pass. Yes, that's the thing. Evers and Locke, as much as I love both of those gets, and I love both those gets, they haven't proven anything. Like Locke or Cole LaCruz could beat out either of those players, and it wouldn't shock me. It shouldn't shock anybody because quarterbacks are the biggest throw darts at the dartboard until you get a hit position out there, right? We've seen 4- and 5-star guys completely fall on their face. We've seen 0-star guys, outperform all expectations and make it to the NFL. So you just get numbers in the room with physical attributes. By the way, Cole LaCruz has those physical attributes. He's a winner, won a state title, somebody the staff decided to stay on. Good size, good arm. He can move. He is tough as hell. Cole LaCruz is tough as hell, and he has complete swagger. So, yeah, who knows? Miles Burkett as well. MLB champs brings up Miles Burkett. The only thing with Burkett, oh yeah, you're saying he's going to transfer out MLB champs. Yeah, I agree with that. I thought you were bringing him up to say that he might end up being a starter as well. I just don't think Burkett fits the prototype of what Phil Longo's looking for. I don't doubt the intangibles. He was a winner, but I just don't think he fits that prototype. So the quarterback position is going to be fascinating to follow, not just this spring. One of the sneaky things to look at this spring is who wins the quarterback number 2 spot, right? You got Mordecai on top of the food chain there. Who's number 2, right? Because the number 2 quarterback gets more reps in practice. So that's going to give whoever gets that a leg up going into next year. And I think it might be Braden Locke. Now, I have no idea, but I think he might come in a little readier to throw the ball. And if he does that, he's got a bit of a leg up next year going into that starting spot. Now, Evers is still going to factor into this. LaCruz is going to still factor into this. I can't wait to see it, man. All right, we're going to take a very quick break. Then we're going to talk a little basketball. Then we're going to get into your comments. NIT, the Badgers have a basketball game tonight. Is anybody excited? Anybody excited? Everybody excited? I don't know. Let's talk about it. But first, let's talk about our new friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. It is our new friends of the show, our favorite sports book, because if you sign up now, you get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line, 3-point scores, 3-pointers drained. And if you're wanting to do something a little bit tonight, the Bucks play the Suns. The Suns coming off that Durant injury, coming off a back-to-back against Golden State. Now they have Milwaukee. Milwaukee -1.5. I would probably take Milwaukee in that against my beloved Suns. The Suns are just in a bit of a tough spot now. Having traded Durant, not having all the pieces that they had traded for Durant, they're a little light, coming off a tough back-to-back. That's what I would do if I was making money. But I would never bet against my sons. That's just what you should do if you want to make some money. Plus, you can combine all sorts of things, same game parlays, player props, points, rebounds, assists, make more money, get paid immediately, and a ton of exclusive bets. FanDuel lets you combine it all. Like I said, same game parlays to make it more exciting, make more money. So don't miss your chance for your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. When you're done, go grab your bracket. We know what time of the year it is. Go check out Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown. National analysis, insight from our local experts. The Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown is everything you need to make the most informed decisions on your bracket. Find the episode on Locked On College Basketball wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. All right, let's keep going here. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. I didn't get a show out last night. Normally I record the night before, so it didn't happen. So I want to do a live show today. Finish up talking about the excitement coming up with spring, the excitement around the program. I talked about RIP fullbacks, RIP the barge, RIP the barge, RIP the hippo, RIP 17 tight ends out there. It's just everything is going to change. But the last thing I would say, if we're going to RIP and put a bookend on the last era of the program, RIP, I hate to say it like this, but RIP a boring program, right? The last couple of years of Wisconsin football really stagnated. It became we don't want to talk to the media. We don't want a spring game. We don't want the Mendota Gridiron Club. I'm not going to say anything in front of cameras. We're not going to recruit a certain way. We don't believe we need a recruiting department. And everything kind of congealed together to make this really unappetizing flavor of football to watch and to follow and to be entertained by. That's over. For better or worse, that's over. And I can't wait for it. A couple of housekeeping things going on here. We are going to be coming up to a live show at the spring event, the launch as they're calling it. So I'm excited to hopefully meet a bunch of people. We're going to have some swag, give it away. We're going to have hopefully a spot at a local sports bar. I think some players might be able to show up as well. So really excited for that. If you're interested in coming down, let me know. We're still kind of in the logistical planning aspects of that. And then the other one is if you want to come join our Discord over at Locked On Badgers, come join the Discord. We have a free March Madness bracket tournament going on right now. The winner's going to get some swag as well. So come join our Discord for really just to talk more Badgers. It's free. A bunch of good people there to talk Badgers. So come join us there. And last thing, if you like the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really, really do appreciate all of y'all coming in and supporting the show, helping it grow. All right, let's talk NIT. So last we had talked about the Badgers basketball tournament. We knew we didn't get into the March Madness. We didn't get into the Alpha tournament. But we at the point of recording, we didn't even know if we were in the NIT. So we are in the NIT, tipping off tonight, 9:30. We're playing Bradley. Bradley finished 25-9. By the way, they finished 12-1 down the stretch. Bradley did. Just FYI, like the opposite of Wisconsin, right? So they went 12-1 down the stretch. I mean, it's a solid. There's a lot of solid teams in the NIT, low key. So it's not going to be a cakewalk. Wisconsin's favored by 3. I think the over/under's at 124 when I looked. Listen, I'm going to watch. I'm always interested in Badgers basketball. I'm always interested in being able to tune in and cheer them on. I know once the season ends, like we spend months waiting for the next one to begin. So I don't want to take games for granted, right? Like as a fan, I really enjoy watching the Badgers play, even when they're not at their best. So I'm going to watch, I'm going to enjoy it. Some things I'm looking for, some things I would love to see. For starters, I would love to see Connor bounce back a little bit. Like Connor, I think has had, I would call him tired legs, right? Ohio State really went after him defensively, and offensively they went after him. Sorry, and he really struggled, And there were a couple games down the stretch where Connor struggled shooting the ball. Now we're seeing other teams kind of target him a little bit. I would love for if you could paint the perfect picture of the NIT for me, it's use it as a springboard for next year. What does that mean? How do you use the NIT as a springboard for next year? Well, I think Connor's a big part of that. You want Connor to go out on the season having a really good tournament performance. not getting targeted defensively, shooting the ball well, and going into the offseason with kind of, not that Connor's ever going to lack confidence or swagger. That's not who he is. But I would love for him to kind of wrap up this season on a high note. I would love to see Kamari McGee, because listen, McGee's a young player. We're talking about building for the future, what's coming up. McGee's here for, he's a sophomore. He's here for a couple more years. If he can build into a competent point guard off the bench, that's a valuable piece. I would love to see him kind of wrap up his season on a good note. I think he's more of a confidence type player than Connor Seagen, where he finishing on a good note, shooting well, wrapping up the season with a couple wins, where he plays a pivotal role potentially. I think that would help him going into the offseason. I would love to see Steven Crowell step up and kind of respond. Listen, Greg Gard kind of went in on him a little bit, right? After the Ohio State game, kind of went in and said he needs to be a little tougher. He needs to assert himself a little bit more. And agree or disagree with a coach saying that, which I had no issues with it. I thought it was apropos. I would love to see Steven Crowell respond a little bit. The other thing I would love to see that we're probably not going to see, I would like to see some Hodges. I would like to see some Ilver. I would like to see some of the younger players that may potentially have a role next year. But Greg Gard's already come out. He's kind of squashed that. He said, listen, we're not going to change our rotation. We're going to play what I feel like is our best lineups to win. And I respect that. Like, I as a fan, I want to see the younger pieces, but I get it. And quite frankly, what's the most you could realistically expect to see Ilver or Hodges play anyway when they really haven't played all year consistently? A couple minutes. So in that aspect, I don't think it makes a big difference. I am curious if anybody's going to the game tonight. Let me know. I'm a little curious how many people are going to show up for a late game Tuesday in the NIT against Bradley. That may not be the most viewed, the most attended Badger game in recent memory. I'll say that. Let's keep going here. Preston Brosner said, one of my favorite memory of giving Madison the full Big Ten, or giving Nebraska the full Big Ten welcome when they came into Madison at night and got blown out. Yeah, if we're talking previous era, that's one of the funnest games of that previous era. Nebraska joining the Big Ten, tons of pomp and circumstance, night game, and they just got murdered. They got their welcome to the Big Ten moment, and I don't know if they've ever really come back for that. Darren Wyman said, I'm excited for Bucky tonight. I get to watch Bucky still playing hoops on my B-Day. I don't know if it's the NIT. I know it's the NIT. They're still playing. Hey, Darren, man, happy birthday. Let's go. I love it. And that's the thing. Like, it's still Badgers basketball, right? I would still rather win than lose games. So if you have a chance to still finish the season with a win, right? With some momentum. And don't mistake it. It's the consolation tournament. Let me put it this way. If you go on a run and win the NIT, there should be no banner hanging in the Kohl Center for that. Okay, I want to be super clear. You should not be giving out rings. You should not be celebrating it. There shouldn't be a banner. But you can still win some games on the way out. And that's a hell of a lot better than losing to Bradley. So I'm going to cheer for him. But I totally understand fans who have kind of checked out on that. 100% agree there. Brian Strutz said, tough season, but they did lose to Kansas by 1. They're a 1 seed. Purdue by 2. They're a 1 seed, and they beat Marquette, who was a 2 seed. Yeah, bipolar Badgers. And quite frankly, they had Kansas beat, man. They had Kansas and Purdue beat. So annoying, man. But yeah, that is the season this year. All right, let's keep going here. I want to get into some of your comments. We're going to take a very quick break for our friends of the show. I have comments from a previous show I want to talk about. Get into some more comments here. Really do appreciate it. Darren Wyman does say you still might see some 2 tight end sets. Yeah, when I said RIP tight ends, I more meant like you're going to have 3 of them out there, 4 of them out there. I don't know. You're still going to see, listen, Longo's going to use tight ends. He's talked about it extensively. He's used tight ends at North Carolina. He believes in their ability. You will not see fullbacks anymore because, Longo thinks tight ends can do what fullbacks do, but catch the ball better, which, yeah, it's probably true. No offense to Brady Ewing out there and those guys, but it's probably true. Logan Couch says an NIT win is better than twiddling your thumbs waiting for football to start. Yes. By the way, really quick, low key, North Carolina, UNC, not just deciding not to go to the NIT is to me, that's some loser mentality. Because I love basketball. Okay, let me just go on a very quick tangent. I love basketball. I used to play basketball. I certainly wasn't a great player. I would love to always have the opportunity to play more basketball as a player, right? And if you have a young team, which is still a pretty youngish team, you can get better with reps. Kyle Shanahan used to say players only get better by playing. He was referring to football, obviously, but it's the same concept with basketball. You don't get better by not playing more. So from that aspect, 100%, go play in the NIT. Let's not make anything more out of wins than is there because it's the NIT. But go play, get more reps, finish on a high note, win a couple games, let Connor get some more reps. See if Steven Crowell kind of responds a little bit. Yes, 100% agree with that. And Preston says the NIT can only hurt if Gard, especially if we lose in the first round. Yeah, that would be a bad look. Agreed. That would be a bad look. But just like I'm not going to make too much out of a win in the NIT. If you lose, you lose. Just finish on a good note, win a couple games. I really want to see Connor go out into this offseason riding kind of a hot streak. So that's what I'm looking for. Very quick break from our friends of the show, and then coming back with a few more of your comments, things that I want to discuss on Wisconsin. All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's get some of the comments from previous shows. As always, I try to get those into the show because I think we're smarter as a community when more people interact, when we get more of our opinions out there. So I always try to get your thoughts in. This is from Alien Space. He said, no Wisconsin, Louisville, Ohio State, Nova, UNC, Syracuse in March Madness this year. Very strange tournament without those teams. The tournament is always better when those teams are kind of engaged in it. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a weird year in college basketball in general, but this also speaks to a point that I've made before. A lot of people don't like hearing it. You're not going to make the dance every year. Like UNC is infinitely more of a college basketball blue blood than Wisconsin. They didn't make it this year. Syracuse didn't make it this year. Louisville, like Nova, and you can go back to previous years, Michigan State, Duke, Kentucky. Like you're not going to make it every year. Now, what you can do is stack failure. And that's what I've talked about. That's why this offseason is so important for Greg Gard. Andy W. says, if Gard can't evolve, he'll turn into the Paul Chryst of college basketball. And we know what will happen if he becomes that. ... Yep, he'll be fired. He needs to do better in the portal. Okay, you have to do better. And it can't be, I was listening to the Jesse Temple and Zach Heilprin podcast the other day, and Temple said it really well. It's not enough to try. Like you have to succeed in the portal, right? Because we heard in the offseason, I talked about this. They tried to get a big guy. Well, they didn't. So that's a failure. You can't just that's how the portal works now. You can't just put your fishing hook out there. If you don't catch any fish, go home to your family and say, well, it's okay. I tried. I didn't catch one. No, that's not good enough. You have to go out and upgrade the roster, period. That's on you, Greg Gard. And he failed this last offseason. So definitely interested in seeing what happens this offseason. It's a huge year for him. Thomas Miller says, if Gard goes, you have to go after Nate Oates. Has Wisconsin ties, recruits his ass off. Yeah, so Nate Oates, the Alabama coach, Alabama obviously had a great year. I know there's people who don't love how Nate Oates handled the situation there this year with the player giving a weapon to a teammate, basically returning a weapon to a teammate late at night, and a person getting killed for that. And then that player never got suspended, and then had some weird stuff where Nate Oates didn't handle it well. I'll just say that from a PR standpoint, if you're the head coach of a program, you are in charge of responding to issues, to things that come up, right? And I thought he handled it incredibly poorly. Now, does that mean he should be off the board for Wisconsin in future coaching searches? I don't know. I would say I would be very reticent to have him in Madison after seeing how he handled that situation. Now, Thomas is right. Now, he's a great recruiter. He's an excellent coach. I don't know. People are going to differ on that one. And I think I would prefer, and Thomas, man, I love that you have great takes. I would probably steer away from Nate Oates after seeing how he handled that. That's only me. And I could be wrong. Maybe I need to look more into that. Leroy James says the same people defending Gard are the same people saying that Chryst should continue as coach and that the fans are spoiled. I say BS. Yeah, listen, it's a very fair point. There was a contingent of people saying, Paul Chryst shouldn't go anywhere, that he's safe because of what he's done. Now, I wasn't one of those people necessarily. Like I was more critical of Paul Chryst and Greg Gard. I just think Greg Gard has had more recent success than Chris. I think we literally saw it last year. So I don't think they're one and the same, but I do think this is where I said in the first point, you can't stack failures. You can't have another year like this year, because then you may not survive. And so this is such a huge offseason for Greg Gard. Like, we keep circling back to that, but he's not getting fired. I still see people thinking he's going to get fired. He's not getting fired. But if he does this again next year, he might be. I truly believe that. This is from, I forget whose comment this was. The only reason I would watch the NIT is see some of the young players play. Starters underwhelmed all year. Time to see what we have in the other dudes. Lindsey's instant offense. McGee's figuring it out. Ilver, Hodges. Yeah, you're not going to see a lot of it because Greg Gard has said we're not going to. I would prefer this as well. I think this is an opportunity to see a little bit what you have next year without like blowing up. Like, I'm not saying you start Lindsey and give him 25 minutes. I think you could experiment a little bit in the NIT, and you're not going to draw the ire of the fans. But Greg Gard's not going to. I understand his viewpoint, even if I slightly disagree with it. Let's keep going here. Don't badger me. I like this comment, man. It's the B tournament, sure, but it'll be another game or two to cheer them on before next season. I respect that. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's not March Madness. We shouldn't do not hang a friggin' banner if you somehow go on a run. Nobody wants to see that in the Kohl Center. It's not that important, but I would like to cheer them on for another game or two. That's the fan in me. I get that. I respect that comment. Larry Smith, not a lot of analysis needed. Team lacked talent. Had no one who could attack the basket, and low post players average at best. In addition, bench was very thin. Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. The team wasn't talented enough. I think Larry, your point of no one could attack the basket is incredibly important. And this is where I think Chucky Hepburn gets scapegoated a little bit by fans, by media. Yeah, because he was entrusted to take a lot of those last shots, but on a better team, he wouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like, if you had a more dynamic two card, I don't know, let's say a Johnny Davis type, that guy's taking those last shots and the pressure's off of Hepburn. It's not really Hepburn's fault that he's forced into some of these bad shots, because quite frankly, he's not in his talent and skill level isn't quite at the point where he should be taking those, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to kill the kid, but he's forced into some tough shots because he's at times unable to create easier ones. That's kind of how it works. Better players, bigger players, more athletic players are more easily able to create tougher shots against high-level defenders, which you're facing when you're talking about the last shot of the game. So I think at times Hepburn gets a little scapegoated for that, just because the team around him puts him into some spots where, quite frankly, he's probably not quite ready for. So let's keep going here. Jim S. says, I'm an old guy. Being in the NIT years ago was a big deal. The Badgers had a bad year. They were picked to finish 9th to 12th in the Big Ten. So he says, sorry, no failure, just a bad year. Yeah, so I respectfully disagree with this. And Jim, I appreciate the comments as always, my friend. I think if you don't make the tournament, it's a failure every single year at Wisconsin. I think if you ask the players at the beginning of the year, if you don't make the tournament this year, is it a failure? I think every one of them would say yes. Now, again, I don't mean failure means you burn the house down and you rebuild it. I think Greg Gard should still be here. But I got to say, if you don't make March, it's a bad year and it's a failure year. I know I had a couple of people call me out on that. Tom Neesis did as well, which I respect the opinions. I'm not saying anyone else has to call it a failure of a season, but every time Wisconsin doesn't make it to March, every time Wisconsin finishes among the bottom of the Big Ten, I'm going to call that season a failure, because to me it is. You can't not make March and say, it's okay at Wisconsin. So that's where I'm at. I'm not saying anyone else needs to be there. Let's keep going. Cold Stone, the current staff isn't super high on Cole. From Cold Stone, I doubt he'll stick around, and if he does, it's because he won't have any other options. Now, that's an interesting nugget. I've heard differing things with Cole in terms of the staff. But listen, he's not their guy. If we're being real, Cole LaCrue is not Phil Longo's guy, right? He inherited him as a recruit. They're in a spot where the recruiting class wasn't very deep, so it makes sense staying onto it. And then he immediately brought in Locke. He immediately brought in Evers, Mordecai. They got a 24 kid. And Phil Longo was pretty frank about the fact that we didn't love the quarterback room when we came in. Now, I think that wasn't just a reflection of Cole or Miles. It was a reflection of the depth of it in general. But yeah, listen, it definitely wouldn't shock me if any of these quarterbacks don't stick around, right? I like Cole. I like his game. I like his competitiveness. If in 2 years he's transferred, that wouldn't shock me at all. Like if in 2 years any of these players have transferred, we just live in an era of college football where none of that would shock me. MLB Champs 1908 says Freitag, basketball or football odds of coming here. From everything I've heard with Freitag, he would not. Let me try to phrase this the right way. He wasn't enthralled with the system that Greg Gard runs, and I'm not trying to say that to like throw meat into the pit here of people kind of feasting on Greg Gard. But I talked to a guy who has some inside knowledge. And he said Freitag would have to be sold on playing in this system. So I think if it's at Wisconsin, I think football's a better chance. I think there's a higher chance that he plays football at Wisconsin than basketball at Wisconsin. And I think that's a bummer because it would help Wisconsin more if he played basketball. He's more of a Wisconsin, the way they've been able to grab receivers lately, and that's what Freitag is going to be at the football level. I would assume that, I don't know if he's a huge needle mover for football at University of Wisconsin. At point guard, he could move the needle dramatically. So if you're a Greg Gard, you better get – I wouldn't put all my eggs there is what I would say, but I'm still hoping he gets them. Daniel Cole says fire Gard, fire Greg. Yeah. Listen, that sentiment's still out there. I disagree with it, but that is definitely still out there. All right, let's wrap it up there. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in wherever you get the show, however you listen to it. Thank you so much. On Wisconsin, and let's talk later.